Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here as your guest, and it's a pleasure to be with you here.
Thank you very much. You were recently, so let me share a little bit about Laura. Actually, you're probably going to be better if you share about yourself. Um, uh, but Laura is one of those people who I've experienced as having a multi-talented life. She's talented. She's a concert. I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right. Concert pianist, singer, songwriter, successful business person, and a wonderful storyteller. And I think that's as far as I've gotten in terms of my experience with you so far. And I was so excited of the stories and the way that you shared about your experiences with the law of attraction, with the way that you've experienced abundance in your life, and how living in a life of flow has been something that you've been experiencing for many, many years. So I'd like to ask you a few questions about how you experienced these things in your life, and as well as what you thought about the masterclass that we recently finished. So Laura, my first question to you is, recently you took the masterclass with me, and why did you join?
Well, it's interesting because that in itself is a very interesting story. But I met someone who was taking your master class. Weirdly, he never showed up for one class. But as soon as I knew about it, I asked if I could join the master class because, in fact, I was at the time studying the Jose Silva method by myself. And he said, hadn't even talked to him about it. Actually, it's very strange how it came up in conversation. This is another example of the universe guiding you when you're sort of in the flow and you're interested in something and it just puts it right in front of your face. But I had come across the Jose Silva method. I don't even know how. I think because I was following Vishani and his masterclass, because I follow him a little bit on social media and his master classes and his university of wonderful things that he has. But I had started studying the method on my own. I had the book on my own, and I got a call from my piano tuner's friend who needed to buy a property, and I work in real estate. And he was looking around for something. And so my piano tuner gave me his number. I hadn't called him yet. I was in the middle of reading this book, and I get a call from him. And in conversation, he mentioned something like, "You probably already know. I'm sure you already know this. You know this already." No, actually, he didn't even say "I'm sure." He said, "You know about this already. I'm sure I'm late for a master class." And I said, "Oh, what master class?" He goes, he says, "Oh, you know about this already." I don't know why he would think that, because I didn't know this man at all. He says the Jose Silva method, and really my hair stood up on my arms because I was in the middle of reading the book when he called me and texted me this. So I thought, well, that's a sign. And I asked him about, like, what is this master class? And I really wanted to be involved. So he sent me Stephen's name, and I contacted you, Stephen, and the rest is history. I took the class with you and I loved it.
You loved it. Okay, awesome. So what was it about the class that you liked?
Well, I'll tell you, I lead a very hectic life, not hectic in a bad way, but it's just very busy, full of wonderful things. And I have to really make time to focus on my huge interest. I've always been a searcher. I study greatly all of this wonderful alternate way of working with the universe, I guess, instead of just working physically with it. I do believe in working with it on another level. And so, but it's hard for me with my day because my days are so packed. And so in committing to this class with you, I made time for it. And I looked forward to it all week. Like for me, it was just like, like 4 days until my master class. And it was a time that I really was able to focus, share it with other people in the community, and just feel like I was a part of something and I wasn't by myself on the search. So I've always been kind of on myself on these searches. So there you go.
Awesome. Let me just let the dog out of the room.
Of course.
There he goes. Okay, they got him. So what is it that you wanted to get out of the class? Was there a specific objective that you wanted apart from just having some time for yourself and continuing on this journey?
Well, I mean, I've known about meditation for a long time, and I do it. I'm not as regular with it as I would like to be, because it's hard. Like I said, it's hard for me to make time. And I try to, like, for the last while, I've been trying to, wake up in the morning and just not let my phone and all the phone calls and everything be the first thing that I deal with. And believe me, in my line of business, it starts pretty early. So I wanted to be able to sort of harness my inner power in a way that would make me feel like no matter what was happening in my life, that I remained calm. That's one thing, because things can get pretty hectic in my world. And I wanted to figure out or work with a way to make things happen in a way that is not just about like working like a dog all the time, running around and just at the end of the day and ending up exhausted. Because I know from many examples in my life that when you're in the flow, things happen naturally and they come to you. You don't even have to really look for them. They just sort of show up. And if you have faith and you love what you're doing, and you do have to put the work and commitment into it. I don't believe that you can just sit around, lazy in bed or, not doing anything and that things are going to happen on their own. I do believe that you have to open the doors somehow, or relate to people, or put yourself, I guess, in front of situations where you allow things to happen. A lot of that is allowing things to happen. But I gave up the idea a long time ago that it's just about working like a dog, because I don't think that is what it's about, and because I love everything that I do, none of it really feels like work, but there is a lot of work involved in it, even if there's enjoyment, and so I just wanted to see if there was a way that I could make things happen a little bit easier, I guess. And really to remain very calm, and to, when I had questions or doubts, to be able to find that answer with certainty somehow within myself, and so I always want to just keep evolving on this path, because I have had enough examples in my life to know that it's real. Maybe more real than our everyday life.
So what I'm hearing is that you wanted to maintain that structure, or you wanted to create a structure in where you can regularly maintain that synchronicity or that flow in your life.
Yes.
And do so in a way that is with ease, and continuity.
And enjoyment. Yeah. Because I do believe, I was raised Catholic. Everything is about suffering. You have to suffer in this world to, win the big prize at the end of your life. I don't buy it for a minute, because I think that actually the objective is to be happy. And I do believe heaven is here, that we find it. We can have it with us all the time. You don't have to wait until you die to go to heaven. I remember asking the priest that when I was like in junior high school, and I would say, why? And they always would just say, like, it's a mystery, my dear. Well, the mystery didn't cut it for me. I wanted to know. I read Nancy Drew when I was growing up. I wanted to solve the mystery. That was the thing. So if there's a mystery and somebody else knows and I don't know, then I want to know what somebody else knows. That's me.
And have you found some of what you're looking for in the course? Have you found some of finding out how to stay in that structure, or create that ease, or maintain that ease and flow in your life?
For sure. Like I do feel that it was very nice to meet the other people that were in the course. Um, it was fun, the class, but it really just always would bring me back to that center so that I could, for the rest of the week, just stay on track with being very balanced, which I think is really important. And so that helped me a lot. And especially, I mean, because I've told you that I'm handling a lot of things in my life besides, 3 careers that I have. I'm also a full-time caregiver for my mom, who has very advanced Alzheimer's. And it's not an easy life to be living. And yet somehow I'm living it with joy. And I'm not saying that it's not hard and my days aren't completely packed, but they're almost exhilarating. And what an interesting life to have. Like, I am not bored ever for 1 second. In fact, sometimes I long for boredom. Must be nice for someone to be bored. I'm not bored.
So when you say that life is almost exhilarating for you, and I know the difficulty or the challenge that there is with being a caregiver for a parent in that stage, my sense of you during the course was there was always this aliveness in you, which partly you brought to the course, as well as enliven the other people around you. And not for 1 minute did I ever have the sense that there is something challenging you in the background. What is it that helps you to maintain that strength inside of that space, that challenging life that you have right now?
My faith that I know that there is so much more to this life, and that I feel like a very strong connection with the spiritual world, and with whatever that force is, that you can call it God. In my language, in my Catholic language, we call it connection with God, but some people call it the source. Some people call it that life energy. Whatever that is, it feels very present inside me. And I love that connection. And if I can just give that feeling of joy and exhilaration to others, I want to be able to do it. And I do it in different ways. In my work in real estate, I do it by helping people find a home, which is everyone's sanctuary, which is so important. And, I never planned to be in this job when I was growing up. It wasn't something that I ever thought that I would be doing. And yet it is such a fulfilling part of my job, because I've experienced how important it is to have that safe place, that sanctuary. And it really influences every part of your life, where you live, your environment, your home, whether it feels good or whether it feels badly, it affects your life in a huge way. And so I love being able to help someone find that space that allows them to be calm and creative and feels like a sanctuary, and that they can even work in, like me, I've worked at home all my life, always had a career where I worked at home in a way. And so my home environment has always been absolutely important. With my music, I feel very strongly that music is the language of the heart and the soul, and the language of God. Really, I do believe that. And to be able to share wonderful music that has incredible energy, that makes people feel healed and energized and calm, and whatever the emotions are that music takes you through. I share that on my radio show, and I know from so many letters and testimonials that I've had from my listeners that it got a lot of people through the pandemic, which was a really scary time for many and a very lonely time for many. So with my songwriting, I express my heart and my soul through music and through words. And, I I connect with people on another level. And as a performer, a stage performer, and sharing the songs, I have seen right in front of me how people are affected. And it just feels like I'm just sharing that same force, that life force, with others, and just giving them a little bit of that to walk away with and help them through their week. And so I try to make everything in my life about that, about sharing the very best part that we all have access to, but sometimes so many of us forget that it really is with us. And I like to be that light, that reminder to other people, and whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter what work I'm doing. There's always a way to find joy. When I was an illustrator and I all I did was paint all day for hours and hours, I found joy in that, even though many nights I had to stay up all night. I feel sometimes I didn't sleep from age 24 to 40. I tell people I did not sleep. I never had a full night's sleep because I had a very hot illustration career, and the deadlines were everything. And I don't know how I found that strength to stay up all night sometimes, but I did, because there would be such it was like really like meditating. I would find that place, and then next thing I know, it's morning, and you're like, wow, I can't believe that haven't moved from this spot in 10 hours. Wasn't a very healthy thing physically, I think, but I have felt time stretch. I had started in the beginning of an evening and looked and been overwhelmed and thinking, like, how am I going to get this finished by morning? And I would be working away, and I would look at my watch, and I'm like, oh my God, like I got so much done in 15 minutes. How did this happen? It's like time changed and stretched. And so I can testify to that. I've been sitting on the piano, sometimes practicing for 8 hours or playing my songs, and it felt like it was 5 minutes. We've all done that. Like when you're really enjoying something, time just goes so quickly, or is non-existent. It doesn't drag, And so I know that there's so much more, and that a lot of it has to do with being in that very special meditative state. And so to be able to hang on to that through problems and, stress and all that is absolutely the most important thing in life. And so for me, this masterclass that you were teaching and kept always, like, it was a constant reminder, a constant reframing of my life, to be in that place all the time. And so I'm very grateful, that I found you. And now I have a new friend, and I can just call you up and say, hey, what do you think about this? I can't believe this happened. Like, it's great.
Thank you. And that's the pleasure is mine to hear those stories, because can you share a little bit about how you've been kind of living this law of attraction, and really living in this space where you allowed your inner guidance, your intuition, to take you into places, the piano, for instance, and if you can share a little bit about that, but you listened to your intuition and you followed your heart, and it opened up these fantastic opportunities for you. Can you share a little bit about how you got into the piano, and why you stuck with it, why you had to do it?
I grew up in a household where the arts were absolutely the most important thing. My father was an architect. He was a painter. Later on, he taught himself how to play guitar later in his life. He wrote a book on physics. It was my dad that really kind of exposed me to this whole metaphysical world. And I always loved music from the time I was, so tiny. I still remember sitting on my dad's lap, and I have a vision of it, living in Switzerland, sitting on the sofa on my dad's lap, and he would play pieces of symphonies, and would ask me, who's this? And it was like some kind of party game, and he would show me off to people, because I would know who it was, whether it was Chopin or whether it was Beethoven or whether it was Dvorak or whatever it was. I would know what it was. And when I asked my mom at one point, like, how old was I? Because I remember she would tell me I was 2 or 3. So it always has been, I've always been very aware of music. My earliest memories of going to school were going to music class, singing songs. And at one point when I was 12 and I was in school, I didn't have an easy time in school because I was an immigrant kid, and I came into elementary school not knowing the language, and so I was always kind of like the odd person. I was like, oh, the Spanish kids, those are the Spanish kids. We were the Spanish kids. And so I kind of hid from my identity. I didn't want to be Spanish, and I didn't want to be different, because kids don't like to be different. They want to like run with the pack. So I met this other boy in my class who I thought was really funny, and he played the accordion, and he became my boyfriend later on. But we were like in grade 8, and he played the accordion, and I thought the accordion was like really cool and whatever. And he would bring me to his recitals. And for my birthday, he gave me an Elton John record. And it was like the first time I heard it, it was the one with Your Song on it, that black one. And it was a beautiful record. And I just suddenly had this feeling that that's what I wanted to do for a living. I said, I want to be like this guy. I want to write songs. I want to play the piano. And I always loved the piano. And so I begged my parents for so long to buy me a piano, and they wouldn't. And my parents at the time had opened a second business importing all kinds of things from Spain. And one of the things they imported were Spanish guitars. And they were beautiful guitars, Contreras. And they put my sisters and I in guitar lessons. And I didn't want to play guitar. I wanted to play the piano. I really did. And so I would cry, like, why do I have to play the guitar? I don't want to play the guitar. I want to play the piano. And finally, my dad kind of exasperated, relented and rented a piano at first to see if it was just a phase, because pianos are not cheap. They're a lot more expensive than guitars. And he did buy me a piano. But during that time, my friend had been teaching me piano in his basement, because I had somehow manipulated him into convincing his mom that a piano was way cooler than an accordion, and somehow got him to get his mom to get him a piano. And I would just come over after school and he would give me piano lessons. And so, and it's funny because I have to show you, I have a picture of me when I was in Spain, when I was, I must have been about 5 or 6 years old. My grandfather had a piano, and I still remember what that piano smelled like. It was a beautiful antique piano, and it just smelled like wood. And in that picture, my hand is on that piano. I'm the only kid. There's like 14 kids there. My hand is on the piano, and I'm looking like I own that piano. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I was 6 years old. And even then I wanted that piano. I loved it. I remember going into my grandfather's study and just like picking away at the keys. But at the time, like, people didn't, in Spain, like, we weren't given piano lessons. Like, that's just not how it worked back then. And then when we came to Canada, like, my parents were immigrants, so they had 5 kids. Like, who had time or money to buy a piano? So I did eventually get a piano, and I studied until grade 8. Grade 8 piano, but I started late. I didn't start at 5 years old. I started at 12. So by the time I got to grade 8, I was finished high school. And my dad, who saw that I was like so involved, and I even had a high school band, and I was, playing piano and like this garage kind of basement band. And I was the only girl in my entire high school of 2,000 kids that was involved in like in a band. And I was writing songs already. And I told my dad when I graduated, I want to be a musician. And, thinking, well, he's given me piano lessons and he's given me voice lessons, and that was the natural path. And both my parents said, no, you're not going to be a musician. And I was like devastated completely. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I can't be a musician? Like, you gave me piano lessons. Why can't I be a musician? And I'll never forget their answer. because you'll be 50 years old and you'll be singing in nightclubs. And that's just not a classy thing. Like, you know, Spanish people are very kind of class oriented, or they were, my family was, and it wasn't cool for them to be doing that. So my dad suggested that I take a year off and go and work in a bank. And so I went and I worked at the Bank of Montreal. It did teach me a lot of things, but I freaking hated it. And my dad had suggested, because I was very good at drawing as well. I was good at the visual arts. I was always won all the art awards and all that. So I was just naturally good at the arts. And he said, but if you want, you can go to art college. And I literally just ran to art college. It's not really what I wanted to do. I was just naturally good at it, but I did get in and I graduated from the Alberta College of Art with a 4-point average, and like the highest that you could get. And I came to Toronto to start a very successful illustration career with my husband at the time. I got married very young. We both came out here with the dream of being famous illustrators, and we became that. It was wonderful. However, when I hit, I would say, you know, after like quite a few years already of like living that illustrator life and raising 3 kids, I remember, and I had a beautiful house in Rosedale. We were very successful. And I remember sitting in the solarium that, you know, my dad had helped me design, because he helped me renovate the house and designed it. And I looked in the backyard and I thought, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. This is it. And I felt so disappointed. I was not happy. I had reached the goal that I thought was like the top thing. And I didn't really like what I was doing, and I didn't feel excited. And it was, you know, got to be a struggle to go and work in the studio, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I kind of had like an epiphany. I don't know what happened, but I had a little breakdown. And I would say that is the moment that my life completely changed. We kept working. A lot of things happened in the world. 9/11 happened. The business changed. The digital illustration really took a foothold in our business. And, you know, we had just won a gold medal for illustration for being like the top illustrators. Gold medal. And the business changed suddenly. And I found myself without a career because the work wasn't coming in anymore. And I was seeing it happen, but I just, you know, our agents and everything, it's like, oh, it's going to come back. Don't worry, you know, but it never did come back in the same way. And I gravitated to music, you know, and it was my birthday, and my husband encouraged me to he supported me in buying a piano. And I started, since I didn't have any work, might as well like learn how to play the piano again. I have to tell you that I hadn't touched a piano in 20 years, and it came back so fast. I was so drawn to it. It's all I wanted to do day and night. And the songs just came pouring out of me. And a few of those songs became my first album. And my whole music thing, it is so strange, but it really has happened by itself I can tell you, it feels like minimal effort. It wasn't really, because yes, I have spent many thousands of hours now playing the piano, writing songs, performing, recording, and being involved in that world. You know, it's been 20 years now. I can't believe that I can say, wow, I've been a musician for 20 years, because I had wanted to be a musician for so long and never did. And now I look back on my life and I think, wow, I've actually done it. But, you know, and I may not be Lady Gaga or whatever, but, you know, I can tell you like a whole other story of how suddenly I was a Steinway artist, which was like the goal. Like when I went down to Florida with my second album, my Spanish album that I made, and my producer, who was passing away at the time, Billy Bryans, he was very famous for the Parachute Club, and he was a very well-known producer. But at the time, he hadn't produced an album for like 10 years. And he asked if he could produce my album. And I started working with him. Well, towards the end of my record, his cancer came back and he ended up passing away. But before he died, on his deathbed, he said, I need you to go to Florida to the Latin Billboard Awards. And I said, like, Billy, but I've just been in Florida. I can't just go back to Florida. I was there 2 weeks ago. And he says, like, you need to go. And he says, and then I want you to just try to meet people. And I went down there. I just listened to him. I said, like, maybe he's right. And I went down. It was a huge thing for me to go back down there again. But I met this man. I was just standing there by myself. And this man literally walked up to me. He was smiling at me from across the room. I didn't know who he was. He came up to me and he said, are you a representative of something here? Like, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, no, I'm an artist. And I gave him my album. And I had no idea who he was. He was very nice, soft-spoken. Next thing I know, he's actually the speaker of the conference that I was at. I was like shocked. And we ran into each other a couple of times. Didn't hear anything from him. He knew I was in radio and we talked a bit. I didn't hear about him for like months because this was winter. And on my birthday, weirdly, on my birthday on Facebook, I get a message from him. I just heard your album. I don't know why I waited so long to listen to it, but I put it on at the beginning, and he was used to put on concerts. He was also a promoter. And he said, I heard your record and I want to work with you. Can I represent you? And I went, oh my God, did you know it was my birthday? And he said, no, I didn't know it was your birthday. And he goes, but I would like to work with you. And the next thing I know, and then here's the strange thing, the strangest thing. He said, okay, so we're going to work together. And we were talking and he said, well, we need to get you some sponsorships. And he goes like, what kind of piano do you like? And I said, Steinway, always Steinway, because Elton John always played a Steinway. And so I got it in my head that I wanted a Steinway piano like Elton John. That was what I wanted to be when I was a kid, right? And he said, okay, he calls me back like a few days later and he goes, did you know that they have this sponsorship program called like you can be a Steinway artist? There's only 1,900 in the whole world, he said. And in Canada, there's only like, I think at the time there's like 18 or something. There's only 18 Canadian ones. And he said, but he said, like, I'm going to contact them about you and I'm going to show them your record. And I said, I laughed, I scoffed and I said, Randy, I said, don't waste your time. I said, like, I know that you want to represent me, but really I am, I'm not really important. Like I'm not a benefit to them. I said, I'm not, I kind of didn't say I'm not good enough. I didn't say that, but I said, you're wasting your time because I'm a nobody. That's what I said. I'm a nobody. And I saw it because he showed me the list of the Steinway artists. Elton John was on there. Billy Joel was on there. Diana Krall was on there. Freaking Ahmad Jamal is on there. Like these are like Cole Porter is on there. I just laughed and I said, no, I said, Randy, no, like, I just want to play. Like, don't worry about that. And he goes, no. He said, like, this is the wrong attitude. And he said, I want you to do something. This guy knew something about the power of attraction. He said, I want you to go and I want you to write down on a piece of paper a letter to yourself. And I want you to write everything that you would like on there. And write down about why you would want to be a Steinway artist. And I want you to put it in an envelope and I want you to mail it to yourself. And I don't want you to open that letter. And I said, okay. I kind of like was very doubtful. But I put that letter on my desk when it came back to me and I never opened it. I still have it somewhere in a drawer. And in there, I wrote that I really wanted to be a Steinway artist, that it would make me feel like the universe had sent me a message that this was what I was supposed to be doing. And in my mind, I knew I would look at it as a sign. And I forgot about it and I went about my life. And I'm like, in the meantime, like trying to do my radio show and do a good job with it and trying to work in real estate, struggling. I was never a natural realtor because I wasn't a salesperson. I didn't know anything about sales. I had always been the product that someone else sold. And so I get emotional thinking about it because on the 24th of December, which was Christmas Eve, Randy called me and he said, he was so excited. He said, Laura, have you checked your emails? And I said, no. And I won't forget his reaction. He goes, are you kidding me? Go and check your emails right now. And in the email, because like throughout this Steinway committee had asked me to write an essay. And I wrote an essay at why a Steinway piano meant so much to me as an artist and as a songwriter. And I got the letter from the Steinway people in New York. And it said, we've gone through you've made it through all the committees and all the approval process. And we're very proud to welcome you into the Steinway family. You are Canada's 19th Steinway artist. I almost threw up, actually. I couldn't believe it. I called Randy back and I said, oh my God. I said, are you kidding me? And he said, yeah, but there's only one catch. And I said, well, what's the catch? He says, well, they can have you on the website tomorrow, but the thing is you have to have a Steinway piano. And I'm like, Randy, I don't have a Steinway. I had another piano, that one that I had bought. And he said to me something really intelligent. He said, this is a crossroads for you. He said, do you think that you would be able to get a piano? And when I talked to the Steinway people, they actually said to me, we don't care if it's inherited, if it's a gift or whatever, but you have to have one. All the Steinway artists have a Steinway. You can't not be a Steinway artist. And so I had just sold my house successfully, double-ended it. And Randy said, well, if you have the money, and I said, yeah, but Randy, I'm scared. Like, that's all the money I have in the world to start a new life, because my life had fallen apart. I had told you guys that before. Like, I had lost my career. I was starting over. My marriage had broken, we dissolved our marriage, and my dad died all at the same time. And that's all I had was that little bit of money that we got out of our house and split up. And I made the commitment and I traded in my little baby grand piano for a Steinway, another Steinway. And I got it. It was a used one because the new ones were $100,000 and I couldn't afford that. They didn't care. I did it and I became a Steinway artist. And there's even more that continues from that, but I don't want to take up all your time. But it's just my whole life has been about protecting. Somehow something is protecting my identity as a musician. And as a somehow maybe beacon of hope for the artist that's out there that thinks that they can't do something because they're not good enough or they're scared. I had terrible stage fright and somehow I overcame it. And I have played in front of 20,000 people with a tiny little piano by myself and didn't have stage fright. I just can't believe, honestly, when I look back at my life, I was the least likely person to be performing, being on the radio and being a public figure. I never looked for that. I never even wished for it. I just wanted to play the piano, but I didn't necessarily want to be a performer. I loved the idea of Elton John with his big costumes and all that. And I thought it was really cool, but I was terrified of being in front of people. So I didn't really want to, but all I wanted to do really was write beautiful songs. And that's what I did. And somehow I ended up where I am now, which is pretty magical, really.
It sounds like there is this, you're leading from your heart, and as you're leading from your heart, you're taking on the commitment of fully going after what is coming from inside.
Pretty much.
And doing that takes you into a brand new place, and it helps your life to be more full, more satisfying.
Well, what it feels like isn't even just that it's full or satisfying. It feels like a magic carpet ride to me. And sometimes I feel like when I look back on it, I think, wow, what an adventure. Like, I just can't believe the adventure that I've had from the time that I was born. I lived in 3 different countries. I've traveled all over the world. I have had multiple careers, like I feel like I never had a sense that there was any limit to what I could do. Like, I never felt like that there was something that I couldn't do, but I did definitely know that I was better at some things than others naturally. But I also liked a little bit of challenge, when you're really, really good at something and it's too easy, it's really not that much fun, because the fun, I realized, is in the journey to becoming, it's not once you've become it and then you continue being that thing. The fun in life is the adventure of becoming that person. Like, that's what life is really about.
So it's a process. It's not an end goal, but it's an experience, a life experience that makes a life of flow more enjoyable, more satisfying, and just like a magic carpet ride. Just wonderful.
Yeah, because when you're in the flow too, things kind of just roll into your life, and you always have that choice. Like, we have that free will to say no or to say yes. Somehow I always end up saying yes, and it takes me in the most amazing place. Like, when that radio show pretty much landed in my lap and I was offered this show, my first reaction was to say no. And then I thought about it for a second, and I thought, well, if it came, maybe I should try it, and the next thing I know, and it was very hard at first, because I didn't know really anything about what it entailed. But I had the courage, to say, okay, I'll do it. And then I just did it. And then now I look back and it's, I've been doing it for a long time. But that's what happens in life. If you can, the opportunities are always coming, and you can either like just go like this and swat them away, or you can go, oh yeah, I'll take that one. I'll try it. And it takes you, it teaches you about yourself. Maybe things that you never would have thought. Like, I didn't know that I could be a person that could talk, with passion from my heart in front of people. And, and I do it every week on my show, and I don't take advantage of that platform, but I've gone up on, podiums and spoken without ever having notes, and just talked from my heart. And and I was terrified of doing those little 3-minute speeches that we had to do in school. I would get really sick. I didn't want to do it. And yet that's what I do now. So if you have the courage to allow yourself, maybe, and allow the universe to allow you to be maybe what you're meant to be, and just embrace it, wonderful things can happen. And that's really what the law of attraction is about. It's not like you're just attracting things. It is kind of like, it feels that way, but I feel like it's more like allowing, going with the universe to where it wants to take you. It feels more like that almost.
It's like going downstream, flowing downstream. And like you're in a canoe or in a boat flowing downstream, and the winds and in the river will just take you down. But it's a much more easier ride. It's more fun. It's faster. But you still got to work. You still got to steer.
Yeah, you do. I mean,
keep yourself off the rocks.
Well, because the opportunities come. It's like, they'll come and they open the door for you. But then you have to adopt the role in a way. Like, I'm going to open the door for you, and you can decide if you're gonna embrace it fully, or if you're just gonna like do it half-assed. I never do anything half-assed. Like if I say yes to something, I'll commit to it and I'll do it all the way. And maybe that's part of the secret of the law of attraction, is that you don't feel it on the surface. You gotta commit and feel deeply about it, and just love it, love what you're doing, and try to enjoy it. That doesn't mean that I'm never upset. Everybody has that. It doesn't mean that I don't get off track sometimes, or I don't get nervous or anxious, or that I, things don't go wrong. They definitely go wrong. But what I've learned is that even the things that go wrong teach you something. And so sometimes those things that go wrong are the things that make you grow and become better at what you're doing. So it's all just gifts, a lot of gifts.
And these gifts come right from a very early age. And if more of us would take on what we connected with when we were very young, at 2 or 3 or 5 or 6.
Oh, yeah.
And just have the courage to continue on that journey, on that path. And
oh, yeah.
Be surprised as to what happens in our lives.
Well, and you hear and you talk to, you hear interviews, and I've become very interested in biographies and autobiographies of people, because it's really interesting how they ended up doing what they wanted to do when they were kids. Because when you're a kid, I feel like you're very open and you're not at all people haven't killed your dreams yet. You're just you believe everything. You believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and you can also believe that you can fly, and you can believe all kinds of things, when you're a kid. And so, you'll hear Steven Spielberg, that he wanted a camera when he was a kid, and his dad or whatever, somebody gave him a camera, and now he's Steven Spielberg. And you hear about all these, it's like endless stories of people that are like very successful at what they do, and it all started when they were little, So I think that maybe that's why I said the other day, maybe we should go back to try to remember what we wanted to be when we were children, because maybe we even know at that age what our path is. I knew. I knew, but my parents didn't want to support it, and I listened. But the thing is that there's always a way to, no matter what you're doing in your life, to feed your dream. Because I realize now that the discipline that I learned as a visual artist, and those nights that I stayed up, and the hard work and the sensitivity that I developed to color, and color mixing and composition and design, even though it was a different medium, because it was with paint and paper and with imagination. When I write my songs now, it is the exact same process. I am mixing sounds instead of mixing pigment. I am composing the shape of a song instead of composing composing a design or an illustration. So it's interesting if you look at your life that way, that many, many things in your life will teach you things about what ultimately you need to learn.
So follow your dream, the one that you have since the earliest that you can remember. Stay the course, and even though it'll veer you off, just keep focusing. Keep staying there, because sooner or later, you're going to get everything that you need to master the dream that you've always wanted.
Yeah. And it's not even like that you get veered off. I think that you need to ask yourself sometimes, why is everything going this way? And you will find when you look back that you needed to learn something from that episode of whatever happened that veered you off or into another career or something else. And you look back and you're going like, wow, I learned so much from that I'm using now, right? Like, for instance, that whole stint at the Bank of Montreal had taught me about financial things. It taught me about credit. It taught me about running a business. And that's what I do now. Like I'm self-employed. I have been self-employed since I was 25 years old. Completely on my own, never worked for anyone, always had to just find clients. I had an agent when I was 25 till I was 40 in illustration. But like, I kind of made my own way. I never really ever worked for a company. I think for 6 months I worked at a design company because we were so broke and I had to take a job. It's the funniest thing. I was going down the Yellow Pages when I first arrived in Toronto and just trying to find illustration work. Here's like another funny story. Going down the Yellow Pages, I get an interview. They call me in. They think I'm perfect for the job. I lie about everything. I tell them like, oh no, I don't know how to do paste up. I don't know how to do it because all I wanted to do was illustrate. So I told them I didn't know how to do anything else. And I remember the guy interviewing me and going like, his name was Ed. He's like, okay, well, and he goes, okay, well, thank you so much. Gives me the interview. I get a call the next day. Well, we picked you out of 90 applicants. And I was freaked out. I said, well, I told Rick, my ex, or he's now my ex-husband, but my husband, I said, I don't want this job. I wanted to be a freelance illustrator. Like, what do you, and he's going, and so I told Ed, I said, well, he says, like, I didn't even know you were looking for applicants. I just wanted to do some illustration work. And he says, yeah, but we picked you out of 90 people. And I said, well, I don't really want the job. I said, like, I'm getting jobs now from Toronto Life and all kinds of places. And he says, well, we want you exclusively. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to be exclusive. I said, I want to live my dream. I want to be a famous illustrator. I told him I was 23. I was very naive. But you know what? He looked at me and he said, do you promise that it won't interfere with your work here? And I said, yeah. And he goes like, so you come into work and you do everything and then you can go home and do your other work. And I said, yeah. And so I did it for 6 months. And I never slept because I'd come home and all these jobs started coming in from magazines and other things. And then I ended up quitting the job after 6 months and I never looked back. The work always just came in when I needed it.
Isn't that awesome? Wow. Laura, that's an amazing story. It is really a magic carpet ride, and it's a very inspiring story. And these are the types of inspiring stories that I like to share on the YouTube channel. And it's great for other people to hear about your autobiography, because this is what that is. So thank you very much for sharing. It truly is wonderful that you took the time to share about yourself and inspire other people. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure, and you give a wonderful class. Thank you.
If you would like to watch more videos like this, then please subscribe to my channel below. Once again, my name is Stephen Dobos, and you can download a free centering exercise. The information is in the description box below.